2-minute drill time here at 105.5 WDHA on the morning show. Jim Monahan along with Chris Swendeman as usual, and a special guest this morning, Jeremy Schaap, who has a brand new documentary coming out called No Easy Victories, the 1994 New York Rangers. Jeremy, good morning and welcome to DHA.
Great to be here, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, when they write the story of the 2024 New York Rangers, given the way these games have gone into overtime in this series, they might be able to use the same title, Jeremy.
It certainly feels that way, right? I mean, playoff hockey is always stressful. It's always intense, but they've really dialed it up a few notches, the Rangers already. Although, they had that easy, I shouldn't say easy because there are no easy victories, to quote from the title, but they certainly, the first two rounds made somewhat easy work of their opponents, at least through those first 7 games. But now we are in the thick of it.
And Jeremy, I want to ask you about that. 1994, the team is a team for the ages. Fast forward to now, 2024, do you see, and working on this production, do you see a lot of similarities with the 2024 team as in the 1994 team? Do you see a lot of intersection between the two?
Yeah, in fact, I wrote a piece that was on our hockey pregame show last night about those similarities. And, if you Google it on the internet, you come up with all these things. And, some of it is supernatural phenomena like
right.
The earthquake and the solar eclipse and stuff like that. But then there's the team stuff too. And, you can see parallels where there aren't parallels, and you can understand why Rangers fans who have experienced only one championship in the last 84 years might be eager to draw comparisons between these teams. But some of it makes sense, right? There are kind of, those superficial things, but there are those meaningful things, winning the President's Trophy, winning the first 7 games, both of them of their playoff runs. What we saw from Chris Kreider with that natural hat trick in the last round, what we saw from Mark Messier in Game 6 against the Devils in the Eastern Conference Final back then. Those are two of, I think there have only been, 9 natural hat tricks in Game 6 of the playoffs ever, right? And 2 of them, right. Kreider and Messier. And there are other parallels. Who was the Rangers' leading scorer in the 93-94 regular season? Most people don't remember. It was Sergei Zubov. I think he had 89 points. Artemi Panarin this time, the Russian connection. We could go on. And then, there's kind of more generally, less specifically, when you look at Adam Fox, do you see Brian Leetch? When you look at Igor Shesterkin, do you see Mike Richter? On and on and on. Right. Is there a Mark Messier out there on this team? I mean, there's some great players. I don't think there's quite a Mark Messier. I wouldn't go that far, but maybe someone will rise to the occasion as we go along here the way that he did.
Messier, and that's one of the 3 things that I remember most about 94. One is after it was all over, now I can die in peace. You saw that everywhere.
Yes, the Zaretsky family. They put up that sign, yeah.
Messier's guarantee, which is, this is Joe Namath-esque, was certainly it. And then Howie Rose's call of Mateau, which is just iconic.
I mean, there are so many things to remember, right? And there were so many inflection points along the way in 94 that if you are part of the sports universe in New York, whether or not you're a Rangers fan, you might be a Devils fan, you might be an Islanders fan, but these things are hard to forget. And of course, they had to get through the Islanders first. And, it was a much sterner test getting past that great Devils team, which was just on the cusp of really coming into full flower and being as great as it was. But there's so much there. And some of it, is because, right, why do we remember it so well? Because there is that one, right? It's just been the one. I was saying this on talking to some guys from ESPN, right? It's not like being a Yankees fan, right? It's like, oh, am I going to pick the 1927 World Series or the 28 World Series? Or am I going to pick 36 or 39 or 49 or 53? Or, we could go on, right? With the Rangers, there haven't been as many options. And so this one stands apart, obviously, in addition to those 3 that were captured early in the franchise history. But it's more than that. It is about the drama. And, we are referring to that, obviously, with the title of the show, No Easy Victories, which is actually a quote from Steven McDonald talking about the award that the Rangers present every year in his name. And people remember Steven McDonald, the New York City patrolman, rookie, not a rookie. He was in his second year in the police force, who was shot and paralyzed in Central Park in 1986. And this is really weaving his story with those Rangers. And he talked about no easy victories. And that's what makes the journey so rich, so memorable. What that team had to overcome, what they faced in those two series in particular in the spring of 1994.
Yeah, the subcontext of the McDonald's family is just wonderful in this whole thing. I actually met Steven and his wife, and Connor at the time, Jeremy, I think he was about 2 years old, interacted with him a few times, working on a couple of different things on charity aspects. And to see Connor now as an NYPD captain, I think he's a fourth generation New York City police officer, is just truly amazing. The bond between Steven McDonald and the team, and Steven and his son, to be able to share that kind of thing with the course of the season of the 94 Rangers, just magical.
It's so genuine, it's so real, and it's such a strong connection. And when we went into this and we had the idea of telling this story, weaving it, the Rangers, the McDonald family, it's when I sat down with Connor and his mother, Patty Ann, and you're not sure what you're going to get, right, when you sit down. You know the story, but if Connor or Patty Ann had said, look, the Rangers were a big part of our lives, but it wasn't everything, right? You'd say, okay, then it's a stretch. That's not a real story. That's not something we would do. But it's not a stretch, right? That connection between this family, between the family and the team, which continues to this day, 7 years after Steven McDonald died, the way that he inspired them, that really close personal relationship with Adam Graves in particular, whose father was on the force in Toronto. It really resonates. And, Steven McDonald's story is much bigger than his connection with the New York Rangers. And his impact was felt all over the world. And his message of forgiveness and faith and commitment and unity and the brotherhood of man is such a powerful one. And, I don't want to overstate this. I'm not an expert on the Catholic Church or the process of canonization. But when people talk about Steven McDonald, they talk about someone who is saintly. I don't know where all that process might go, anything like that, but someone who inspired people by his example, by his principles and his faith, and it's really special.
Jeremy,
go ahead, Chris.
Jeremy, you've covered every sport imaginable. You've covered countless amount of teams, players. Have you ever seen a fan have an impact on a team versus a team having an impact on a fan, and the bond, the way that the Rangers and Steven McDonald and his family have together?
I'm trying to think about it off the top of my head. I can't, I've certainly done stories about, I think mostly young people in difficult situations, health situations, who inspired particular players they were close with, relationships. Working on a story like that now about not a kid, but a special needs athlete in Sweden who has a special connection with the Bruins, and Linus Ullmark, their Swedish goalie. But in terms of a whole team, the impact, the presence of Steven McDonald, all of that, I think that's unique in my experience. And one of the cool things I think about the way we tell this story too, and the director, Mike Shallow, did a tremendous job. It's also because Connor was 7 years old at the time that they won this championship in 94. We are seeing it through his eyes, through the eyes of a 7-year-old, right? This remarkable run and all of the high drama and Matteau and the Messier hat trick and the end of Game 7 against the Canucks. And like a 7-year-old whose whole life revolves around, what's going on the ice in these games in New Jersey and Vancouver and at Madison Square Garden, he remembers everything, everything. Like, the way that nobody can remember what they did this morning, every play, every shift.
True.
And he carries us through that narrative of what happened in the spring of 1994. And that's another thing that I really like about this story.
No easy victories. The 1994 New York Rangers. It premieres this Tuesday, June 4th, 9 p.m. on ESPN. Jeremy Schaap, thank you so much for your time this morning. The trailer looks great. I can't wait to see this on Tuesday night.
The pleasure has been all mine, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. Really looking forward to it.
Bye-bye.